Hi, everyone. Welcome to Your Messy Brilliance podcast. It's Kelly, and in this May of 2018, I am really stoked to have our guest today. And I think you will be too. If you're the least bit interested in sex, anything about sex, having more, understanding why you don't want it, just kind of connecting about women, sensuality, and their power, this is the podcast for you. I am so excited. Emily Morse is a sex and relationship expert, doctor of human sexuality, and creator and host of the iTunes top-rated podcast Sex with Emily, which has really helped millions of people achieve the love life they desire. Recently, Esquire magazine named Sex with Emily as one of the top 12 sex podcasts, and Morse has been voted the number one dating and sex expert to follow on Twitter. So go on Twitter and follow her today. Thanks to her educated and friendly and warm approach, I've met Emily down at the Sheila Kelley conference, amazing Sheila Kelley live conference. She really has proven to be the go-to expert for all things sex and relationships. So I want to tell you a little bit more about her before we bring her on. 2015 marked the 10th anniversary of the Sex with Emily podcast. Since then, the show has evolved from homemade experiment to really professionally produced and has elevated Dr. Emily to true celebrity status. To date, the Sex with Emily podcast has been downloaded nearly 40 million times. So women, we are moving forward in this world with sex, and we're understanding it, and we're curious, and we're feeling more empowered. Morse can frequently be seen as a guest on television programs like The Today Show, The Doctors, and much more. Networks include NBC, CBS, ABC, HLN, and really more have turned to Emily to serve as their sex and relationship expert on a variety of segments and specials. She's also a contributor to popular publications like Glamour, Cosmo, Bustle, Men's Health, which I love that she's on in Men's Health, Harper's Bazaar, Ask Men, and many more. And Emily regularly addresses reader questions, and she really loves to do Q&A. So I can't wait to talk about all kinds of questions that my community has asked me about sex, that I've heard my girlfriends have, that I have about sex. I cannot wait to dive in. So let's go. Welcome, Emily Morse. Well, welcome, Emily. I'm so excited and honored for you to be here with our community at Women for One.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled.
I'm really excited to talk to you because as many women have issues, I personally have lots of issues with my sexuality, and I'm always pushing the edge and trying to learn and educate myself. So I just first of all want to say thank you for what you do, and thank you for like pushing that envelope even further and educating and getting real with women and men in this world about sex and about sexuality and sensuality. So thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. And we're all in this together. Like, I love that you say that. I think that we all have challenges, around sex. So I'm just trying to make it easier. So we're all on the same page, and we're all focusing on it and working on it because it takes work.
Well, I love listening to your podcast because I sit there and I go, okay, so I'm turning 50 this year, and I was raised, by a family that we really didn't talk about sex. And you just are like right out there with it. And it almost sometimes is like, oh, I'm getting used to this now. It's like I feel like a grandma sometimes listening, going, okay, I can do this, I can listen.
That makes
And
me so happy. Yeah, no, because like, really, why don't we talk about it? It's because it really is comfortable for me. I mean, it wasn't always that way, but yeah, like you're like, whoa, did she just say that? Okay, I got past the shock value. No, I think I can do it. We can do this together.
Well, and
We all
it brings up for me all of my limiting belief systems and my shame around, I'm an incest survivor. I've also experienced sexual harassment, and I'm not unlike a lot of women, right? I mean, a lot of us have experienced
yeah,
that.
like
So
majority of women. Yeah, when you were saying that, like you realize that you've got these challenges and you've got these things. Yeah, 2 out of women have had some kind of sexual trauma, abuse. I mean, God knows everyone with Me Too. We all have had. I think a lot of us things in the workplace. So it's almost like you are the norm. Not the exception. So
I'm starting to realize that instead of just feeling I'm less, I'm alone, then that's why, part of the reason we create what we need to learn. And I created this community of Women for One to share their stories and get real and transparent about what they've experienced, because I needed to learn how to do that. So
I need to learn how to have great sex.
I can't imagine that you don't have great sex, Emily. So.
Now I do, but right, but I started it. I love that you say recreate what we need to learn, because I always say you teach what you need to learn. But I love that turn on it, the create, because I think that for women like us, or all women who really put their heart, like we do with everything, I think in a lot of things we do, whether it's raising children or raising a company or a brand or a business or whatever you do, it's like we have to be invested. And oftentimes we're driven by what we really do need to learn. And we know that we all learn from each other's stories. So we do the journey, like we're learning, and then we have people join us for our journey, and then we can teach it, and you're never done learning. So I love it.
Yeah.
I
So,
love
okay, let's
doing.
let's dive into your story a little bit. I always ask the people that I speak with on my podcast about their story. So, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, and then also what brought you and led you to where you are now with your podcast and your education
Yeah.
about sex?
Sure. I am from, let's see, where do you start? So I'm from Michigan. I was raised in Michigan. I have like I have a pretty open family. My mom was, so I didn't grow up with a lot of the shame around sex. I just grew up with a lot of the, no, with zero information around sex. And my mom was like, if you have questions, be sure, ask me, but I'm around. And I think the problem is a lot of children, we don't really know what the questions are around sex. Like I didn't know what to ask, right? So then I started having sex, and I grew up in, Michigan. Like I said, I went to University of Michigan. I moved to San Francisco after college and started working in politics. So I had a long career in politics for about 10 years, and then I got into filmmaking. I made a documentary, but all the while my sex stuff was like, I didn't have any shame around it. I just realized that like it wasn't that great. Like I never really learned about pleasure and masturbation. And actually, when I was about 20 years old, was my first sexual realization, where I thought, I was in college. And remember, I said, my mom said, ask questions. And I realized had been having sex, but it wasn't great. So I said to my girlfriends, what's up with sex? Like, it's okay. I have a boyfriend. He's fine. He visits from, he'd come visit from another school, but he's like pounding away, and I really like the cuddling. So they're like, well, okay, do you ever orgasm? And I was like, what's an orgasm? And like, what, have you ever masturbated? I said, well, what's masturbation? I mean, really, it was like this day that my mind was blown. I'm like, how do I not know these things, right? I mean, I think that we make these assumptions that women should just figure out their bodies, and we're just going to imagine. And I was one of the women who it just never occurred to me to touch myself. Never heard about it. And obviously before the internet, I wasn't reading stuff about sex. And so that was my journey for sex. And then like 15 years later, when I started the podcast, I realized that there were so many people just, I'm kind of an overachiever, but I realized that my sex had gotten better. I figured out orgasm and masturbation, but it still wasn't, I knew that there was more to having amazing sex and relationships. And I feel like a lot of people around me were struggling with it, or they were talking about amazing sex they were having with random partners, or they were in long-term relationships and not having great sex. So I thought, well, sex could really be an interesting, I was infinitely always curious in sex and relationships. I've always been the person who's like, if someone says to me, I had amazing sex last night, I would stop and say, back up. What does that mean? Like, were you swinging from the rafters? Did you have 18 orgasms? Was his penis double jointed? What does amazing,
Right.
So I was like, what the hell? So then I was like, well, this would be something, I'd just come off of making a film, a documentary. And I thought I could do a film or just do something around people like sharing their stories around sex. And then I heard about podcasting, and it was that first month of podcasting. And I had an intern at the time who said, well, why don't we just I said, I just love interviewing people. And she said, let's do this thing called podcasting. And I started it 13 years ago in my living room in San Francisco. And I just started because I knew that we would all learn from each other's stories. And that I was like, well, this seems like something pretty damn interesting and important to become an expert at. And I just interviewed everyone I knew about their sex life, their relationship, dating, marriage, love. And I read every book on sex on the planet. And then I went back to school and got my doctorate. And then since then, I've done a podcast every week for 13 years, and it grew into this, much larger impact and a bigger show, and doing like television, books, and teaching. And really my main focus is just to help people feel comfortable talking about sex. First of all, feel comfortable with their bodies, get rid of that shame, which is just bringing us down, release trauma, work on trauma so we can move forward and have pleasure in our lives. I don't think we have enough of it, and we make sex really complicated. So my show tries to be non-judgmental, open, authentic, and real so people can move on and have great sex and relationships.
That's so cool. And I love that you said the word complicated because that's what I do. And that's what I know a lot of people that I know do. We make it very complicated. And I'm just dying to, this question just popped up for me. So I got to ask you. So I have this friend. I'm sure you hear this a lot. I have this friend.
First,
And I really mean it is a friend. It's not me. I would be honest if it was me.
I know.
Well, the thing
I
is, she was talking for years. I have these two very close friends, and all my friends are going to know who I'm talking about, that are like total, like, they love sex, right? And they have orgasms easily. And I'm always like fascinated by it because I'm so challenged by that. And,
right.
and, they're always, when we go out and we have a couple drinks, they're starting to talk about it and they get really into it. And this one woman that has felt very sexual for many years just recently has been in a long-term relationship. And she said to me like a month ago, she's like, oh my God, I've never had a full body orgasm. So I want to talk about that. She's like, I thought I was like really sexual. And this is the first time, and she's 50 now, that I've ever had a full body orgasm. So I guess I kind of want to just like dive into that and go, it was so shocking. And I want to also talk about the fact that here, if we hadn't been open enough to share our experiences, she would have thought she was the most sexual person in the world because she had never experienced a full body orgasm before. So
Right.
just curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I mean, well, how did she explain it? Was she like, was it her goal to try to have one, or she just
No, it shocked her. She was with a partner. They were experimenting. They're getting curious. She was letting go of all shame, and he was really kind of educating her. And she was very safe with him, so he kind of pushed her into places that she had really never experienced before, and she didn't even know they existed. And I mean, 50 years old, you don't know about a full body orgasm. It's like,
Oh my God, right? Women don't know. They're like, women assume that they have. That's the other thing is that we make so many assumptions like, oh, well, I have a clitoral orgasm and that's all I have. Or I've never had an orgasm with a partner, so therefore I never will. And women don't realize that's a lot of what I talk about is what's possible. We have such unlimited potential and capacity for pleasure. So yeah, the full body orgasm thing is real. I mean, it can take. I mean, I think everything you said there is so right. You want to be with a partner that you can trust, that you feel safe with, and just to kind of just explore your body without the goal of orgasm. But full body orgasms happen when you're just really, she's probably practicing some kind of like tantric breath. She's probably breathing a lot through her body and moving orgasm energy throughout her. I'm not sure what she did exactly, but a lot of
right.
women can experience it through breath and through like, it's kind of like when you have a blended, like an internal, external touch sensations using toys. I don't know, but it's possible for every woman to push the envelope of where they've already had pleasure, I guess. So
And
people could,
yeah,
yeah.
how do you start with that? Because like, what are some of the questions you get the most frequently on your podcast from women in the way of what's stopping them from having pleasure and experiencing that
Okay.
passion, that joy,
Yeah.
that pleasure with a man or another woman?
I think the thing that's stopping women is that I think number one, oh God, this is such a good question because number one, we don't even know what's possible. So I love your question about your friend. And I think that is like, I hope that so many women of all ages are going, oh, wow. Like now they realize that's possible because, and I talk a lot about how to get the most pleasure on my podcast. But I think the top questions I get from women are about orgasm because we're so in our head and during sex and we're really busy. We have a lot of, anxiety is like the biggest killer of our sex drive. And women are just like, I don't want sex. I have low libido. I don't know how to prioritize it. So I think it's all around, how do you quiet your mind and prioritize sex so you can really be in the moment, either if you're just by yourself masturbating or with a partner. And I think that's just our thing with women. We're messy, right? We're all over the place.
Yeah, we are messy. And in terms of libido, though, is it a real fact? I mean, you're this expert on this. And is it a fact that women have less libido generally than men? I mean, all my friends think that when they hit my age hormonally.
Well, okay, that's one thing. There are other hormones that you can tweak, but there's been plenty of. Well, okay, let me go back to the first thing you said. When I started my show 13 years ago, I was shocked to learn that it actually wasn't true that men wanted sex all the time and that women were just frigid and pushing their partners away. Because what I started hearing from women were like, no, I want sex way more than my partner. And what I realized, it's actually, you can't draw generalizations. Men and women will fluctuate throughout relationships and throughout time where sometimes guys want it more and sometimes girls want it more. And there's no, you can't stereotype women and men in anything when it comes to sex. So that's actually not true, that it ebbs and flows, our desire and our libido. But what they found about low libido, like, is that women, a lot of times, it just has to do with, you know, they show that women who might have been in a long-term relationship and not wanting sex with their partner, the second there's something new, something exciting, something novel, something different, they actually do desire sex as more, and they do want to be with partners when we can bring back that spark, that newness. So a lot of times what we thought was low libido was really just like lack of interest, lack of, whatever desire. Like there's resentments that have built up in relationships. It doesn't actually have to do with sex. Do you know, does that
Right.
make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
And
Yes.
then, but here's the other thing with women too, is that our health and our hormones also play a huge role. So 1 in 5 women are antidepressants, right? So if you look at that, well, that would make sense then that 20% of women at least, and that's just one medication that could really impact your libido. Birth control pills, certain kinds can impact your libido. And yes, hormones, women who are perimenopausal, menopausal, that will also impact your sex drive, but there's things that you can do. So it's not like you have to sit there and suffer either. But my challenge around women and sexual health, and which is why I love that we're talking about this, is that there are solutions. And I think that there's going to be a lot more information about this for women, that we're all going through these changes and we all don't know to talk to about it. Like, I don't know why you have to go to a million doctors to figure out hormones. Why can't there be a standard, place to go or person to go? I feel like if men were going through like perimenopause, or men were going through, there would be like a standardized system with your health plan and they'd figure it out. But women, it's still like the Wild West hormones.
It
And
is. It's
I know,
amazing that it's still so confusing.
right.
And I had a naturopath that actually simplified it for me. And as soon as I simplified it in my mind, actually my body went along with it, if that makes sense.
Exactly. No, this is what I'm going through too. I'm just starting to see a naturopath, and I'm like, oh, but that wasn't at Cedar Sinai in Los Angeles, like the Western medicine. But how do we have to like talk to each other and figure it out? So, God, we could do a whole nother show on that, because
I
that's just
know.
right.
Right.
But I think that I really think that the things that women are challenging with is really just kind of accepting, like loving their bodies, self confidence, and a lot of sexual confidence comes from understanding your body, what makes you feel good. So masturbation is important if you're in a relationship, if you're out of a relationship. It contributes to your mental health. Like women who have more orgasms, you have less stress. You release anxiety and stress. You can learn your body and what makes you feel good. It's not about your partner figuring it out. And the more we realize that our body can have these crazy, multiple orgasms, full body orgasms, and then we can have sex without shame and guilt, we're going to be having incredible sex for the rest of our lives.
Right. And I actually have a daughter who's turning 18 this year. And, I'm challenged with my own challenges around shame and sexuality, and I'm figuring out for myself. Do you have any advice for how we as moms can educate our daughters? How you were talking about at the beginning where, I'm more like your mom. I'm like, if you have any questions, and I'll push it, but she pushes back as a teenager, right? Mom, I don't want to talk about it. Mom, I got it. They educate us at school, you know?
Right. And they don't. Okay. So that's such a good question, because these are all the things I'm sort of like, I'm really interested in right now too, because I just feel like sex has become, especially with porn, like your daughter, she probably saw porn for the first time,
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
long earlier than we did, and so I feel like, okay, there's a lot going on here with kids, because I feel like they don't want to talk to their parents. Even if you were like a sex educator and you sat down, she'd be like, ew, mom, like there's something about kids and parents that they,
Right.
we don't know the questions, and we actually don't want to hear our parents talking about it. So I think that the schools, I really am passionate about sex education and getting it into schools where it's not just like a one-off class that's taught by your gym teacher in 7th grade, but it's actually part of the curriculum. And it's like they do in Norway, or they do in other, in Europe and other in France. They have sex education that's ongoing, and they start it at a young age, when kids start discovering that they have vaginas and their boys have penises. When they start to ask the questions, you have to educate them. And we need to teach about pleasure, not just safety, and like, don't get pregnant, don't get an STD, but like, oh, this is your body parts. And talk about, people are so afraid about teaching kids that sex can be about pleasure and respect. And so I think that it should be an ongoing curriculum in schools, starting when kids are like in 4th, 5th grade. And every year there should be like a sex educator that probably comes in from outside the school. And it's not once a year, but it could be once a month. But it's like part, because then they get comfortable with it. Then they're not giggling that, oh, it's sex education day for
Yeah,
the,
I know.
that's,
And I mean, it's also so insidious, Emily, because I am in my kids, I have six. I have three of my own and three stepchildren, and my youngest is graduating from high school. But all of our children have gone through this. And it's so insidious the way they shame, especially girls, even in the school. They dress code girls if they have short shorts, with the implication that that is, drawing the boys to them, where the horny teenage boys. And those kind of messages that come from even a public school, I feel like need to be addressed, and they need to address, even, I mean, educate the educators about that. Wouldn't you agree?
oh my God, yes. Did you ever read, Peggy Ornstein wrote a great book called Girls and Sex. And I think it's a must read for everybody who has a young woman in their life. Like, I have three nieces. Like, I think that everyone can kind of relate to the young girls in their life. And it talks about how it's such this double standard for parents and for schools, that like they just don't get it. Nobody gets it. So we're still far away from this plan. But I feel like, yeah, they're like, just don't dress sexy and don't show off. I mean, yeah, the educators understand, parents will understand. And I think that as a parent right now, if you're listening to this, like, I think that talking to your girls about that, it's about their pleasure. Like, they don't owe a guy a blowjob. They don't owe men sex. A boy's not going to like you more because you're giving up sex because you look sexy, and that your body, your choice, that it's about pleasure. It's about them pleasing you too. And that you should, feel like you're going to be more loved, more liked because you're sexier, because what you give up.
Absolutely. And I'm really fine with my daughter wearing short shorts if she wants to wear them for her and feel in her power.
I didn't get the clothing part. Yeah, can't believe the schools.
Public.
I've heard this conflict before. They're like, we're trying to make it safer here. And they're like, I can be sexy. Why can't I? Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
It's very complicated.
And so, yeah, speaking of that, what do you think is changing in the field of sexuality, especially with some of the conversations we're having with respect to things like consent and gender fluidity, and just the ways our general ideas about sex are transforming because of social movements like Me Too and Time's Up?
I think that things are changing. Well, oh God, I believe that right now with Me Too, that women are really women are realizing now that we have to, that we're not going to we're not going to stand for what has happened in the past anymore, with men and in the workplace or in our relationships. And then we're realizing that this really is our time, and more so than ever, that in a way, we have to be the leaders and the educators and lead by example, I guess, and not be comfortable with the norm and how things were. I think that we can't blame men either, because men didn't know. Men are learning from their fathers, and men are learning from the other men in the workplace. So I think it's that people are more open right now to learning and to educating, but I think that we're still I don't know. I think it's the very beginning, but I think we're in the middle of a very exciting time right now, and this is a movement. This isn't like a blip. This isn't like a pop culture thing that's going to be fleeting. It's like there's a change coming right now, and it's not going to go back to how it was. That we're moving forward with men and women really talking about this stuff, talking about consent, talking about pleasure, speaking up for what we want in the bedroom and in the boardroom. If we're uncomfortable with something, I think that we're going to start realizing, why aren't I speaking up? What were my attitudes towards men and my role in the place? I think that we're just kind of been handed this baton that we always knew that was actually rightfully ours, and we're not going to be able to kind of be silenced anymore around.
Yeah, there's no going back. I can really see that. I can see that with my daughter and my stepdaughter, ages 18 and 24. They're both like, oh, what? We can't say. I mean, of course we're going to say something. Where me at 50 was like, whoa, I didn't even know I wasn't saying anything. So we have moved forward in speaking up and stepping into our power, I believe. For sure.
I do believe. Yeah, we just need more education, and we need more social conversation like this. I think that everybody wants to know what to do next. And it's like, I feel like people need to go in and talk to larger corporations. They need to talk to kids in schools. They need to, it's just kind of like, I think we're still in this right now, but also that it's okay that it could be messy, to use your words. Doesn't have to be perfect right now, but as long as we're not doing things how we've always done them. So if things feel uncomfortable in the workplace, things feel uncomfortable in your relationship, we can make that change. We can speak up now. I think that it gives us permission. I think a lot of women are relieved right now, in the sense that oh, I realized that I'm not alone. And I think you asked me earlier, like, what are the big questions I get asked? A lot of it from women is like that women silently suffer through so many things, through painful sex, through bad relationships, they suffer not having orgasms. They suffer through, we suffer through a lot because women are tough and we're pleasers and we normalize things. But I think now with all this information out there, that women are like, no, pleasure is my birthright. I deserve to be in a healthy relationship with someone who trusts and respects me. I don't need to be taking care of everybody else's needs before mine. I actually matter. I'm a better mother, boss, friend, aunt if I take care of my own needs. So I think it's like we finally have permission to stop worrying about what's normal, what's not. We now have community of women who are coming forward saying, I get it, me too. We're all in this together. Let's support each other and make a difference and stop silencing and sitting alone, suffering through things.
I love that you say that. And I just love what you're doing. I mean, it's just, I've told everybody about it and I've listened to you. It's like, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I didn't hear about her before. So it's just incredible.
I feel the same exact way. I love your book. I love everything that you're doing too. Where do you live? Where are you?
Seattle. I'm in Seattle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm on the West Coast with you.
Are you doing a lot of, stuff with Sheila Kelley? Are you coming back down to?
Oh, I would love to do more with Sheila Kelley, but I am planning on we're doing truth teller tours where we have women get up and not only speak not just about sexual abuse or sexual harassment, but anything that has affected and impacted their lives that they've gained wisdom from, whether it be an eating disorder, whether it be some death or a loss or a success. So we're going around having them do that through the spoken word, not just the written word, like on our site. And that's kind of my new format. So we're planning on doing one in LA in the next year. So I'm excited.
Just let me know. I love what you're doing. Yeah.
Thank you. And so where can we find you, Emily? I know you are going to be, for our community, you're going to be at Wanderlust, which I will be too, which is cool.
Yes.
And you'll be giving 3 speakeasies, which are casual talks, which is awesome because it's Q&A. And that's I could sit here for another hour with you and ask you questions. But Wanderlust Stratton, Vermont, June 21st to the 24th. And Wanderlust Whistler, August 2nd to the 5th.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what else is going on and how can people find you?
You know what? It's all at sexwithemily.com and at sexwithemily on social media. And I love answering people's questions and we take callers on the show. So if people want to send me their questions, it's feedback at sexwithemily.com. I've got products. I've got a course coming out, some more appearances, and it's all on my website, and toys and things that will just enhance your sex life and relationship. We've got tons of blogs and videos, and I'm just all about women enjoying, and men and couples just having better sex and being comfortable asking for it and talking about it and prioritizing it.
That's awesome. What is your course before we go? Give me a tidbit.
I can't, oh my God, I can't really say it, but it's really going to be just a course.
Oh, it's coming out still. Okay.
So it's going to be coming out like in the next 2 months. You should check out my website. It's going to be for men and women.
Go to Emily's website because I will. I'm going to go check that out. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so honored to have talked to you.
Same. Honored to talk to you. Doing good work. Great
talking. Thank you. Take care, everyone.